Are you exhausted after months, maybe years of healing? Do you wonder why you're not more healed after investing so much time and effort? Or maybe lately things have gotten quiet and calm, but there's like a lingering guilt or discomfort, like you are supposed to be doing more, breaking through, breaking down, purging, processing, evolving. And do you often wonder, am I not doing enough if I'm not actively working on myself right now? So if you're in that uncomfortable in-between space where you've been healing and healing and healing, investing in your growth and your transformation, and you've learned a lot, you've achieved a lot, you've had a lot of breakthroughs and a lot of up levels, but true ease and embodiment hasn't fully happened yet, or your external reality hasn't fully matched your internal changes, then this episode is for you. If you're in a phase where your growth feels either too quiet or too slow, where you're thinking, I've healed so much, so why is my body still stuck with these issues? Or why are these problems still problems? Why hasn't anything changed externally? First of all, you haven't failed. You haven't done anything wrong, because what you're experiencing might not be a plateau, but an integration period. Integration is the missing link between transformation and embodiment that often gets overlooked, gets misunderstood, and bypassed. And yet it's the sacred phase of healing where everything you've put time and effort in to achieve, to awaken and to realize, has to be metabolized and stabilized mentally, like neurologically, emotionally, physically, energetically, and spiritually before those inner changes become holistic embodiment and then ultimately outer change, outer transformation. Because without integration, healing just stays stuck in your intellect. You're never really allowing that knowledge to integrate into your nervous system, meaning recalibrate your nervous system. And without integrations, breakthroughs don't become new ingrained beliefs or habituated behavior. Without integration, healing just becomes another addiction to doing, not real easeful embodiment. And, in the healing space, especially for overachievers, I'm a recovering overachiever. For those of us who were raised to believe in hustle, in struggle, in proving, in hard work, it's easy to unconsciously perpetuate that same more is better mindset. If I want to heal more, then I have to do more. If I want more success, more anything, then I have to do more, be more, prove more, effort more. And that shows up as chasing the next healing modality, chasing the next trauma trend, the next spiritual movement, believing you think that you're evolving and healing because you're doing something, you're doing more. But true healing is cyclical, it's not linear, and true integration honors the sacred law of rhythm, which is a Hermetic principle that reminds us all that things rise and fall, they expand and they contract. There's movement and rest, meaning ebb and flow are natural to existence, and seasons are an innate part of existence. So when you try to override that natural rhythm, you don't actually heal your nervous system, you dysregulate it, because you have confused excess with transformation. You've mistaken overstimulation and constant productivity for growth. Rhythm isn't just some spiritual or metaphysical principle. It's backed by science. Integration is not a luxury. It's not a nice thing to do if you have time. It's actually a biological, physiological, neurological necessity. And the process of learning and internal change, what's called long-term potentiation in neuroscience, requires cycles of repetition and rest in order to solidify new neural pathways, rhythms of activity followed by rest. So that means that your brain literally needs space to breathe between the breakthroughs. It needs to slow down after periods of heightened activation or positive stress to productively encode safety. That's huge, because without that pause, even the most profound breakthrough is going to remain a short-term surge excitation instead of becoming long-term change. So rest is not regression. Rest is rewiring. And so today we're going to talk about the sacred necessity and science of integration, why you're tired after quote unquote doing the work, why it's normal that healing is sometimes boring and slow and quiet, and what's actually happening in your brain and your body and energy during that sacred pause, and why stillness is not a setback, but actually the real upgrade. Now, I wanted to do this episode because I am in a deep and profound integration period right now, perhaps the most significant of my life so far, because, life's an adventure. Who knows the next twist and turn? But the past 6 months have been revolutionary for me in terms of transformation, identity changes, up levels, next level, otherworldly experiences, and a real true reclamation of my highest truths and self. And in 3 of those 6 months, I shifted timelines over 25 times. That's a fuck ton of reality bending, you guys, and time warping and commanding my field. I've had the most life-changing breakthroughs of my life in the past few months, and I have released all distorted spiritual and manifestation principles and frameworks and teachings that promote and reinforce hierarchy and separation and struggle and disempowerment and distortion of the true nature of reality, which is basically all of them, to be honest. I've let go of a lot because I realized, and I'm going to do another episode about this specifically, is I had to really fully reclaim my sovereignty, mind, body, and soul, in order to really fully realize the complete, unburdened, and joyful embodiment of my highest self and truths. I had to fully reclaim that on every single level, particularly on a spiritual level, I am sovereign. I am bound by nothing. I have complete, total freedom and choice. And because of that ultimate liberation, my life on a daily basis has become magical and extraordinary because I'm not bound to false distortions like karma or spiritual hierarchy or even the ascension narrative anymore. I am free. And also now I'm exhausted. So tie. And my highest self has enacted a whole system, a whole reality quiet to allow integration, to allow my physical reality to catch up to the unprecedented internal changes that I've made in the past few months. Now, this integration is not an absence of healing or growth. It's a real deepening of my healing and growth, because this is when I truly get to master myself. And I have been surprised with how, in the seeming quiet, because I know the quiet is just an illusion, and there's actually a fuck ton happening in the background of my reality to restructure, reorganize, and stabilize into my highest timeline, in a way that it has never done before. So the quiet is just a facade. It's really not quiet back there or in here. If you're listening, I'm just making a circle to represent my field. But I have been surprised by the amount of magic that continues to show up in my reality. The magic has not stopped, is what I'm saying, in the integration period. For instance, I can now see 13 and counting different types of energy with my eyes open and closed. Different types of energy. I say 13 and counting because it just keeps more types of energy just keep revealing themselves to me. But one night, and this was when I decided to take a couple of weeks off from all healing, even somatic exercises. I was just a full stop. I'm going to do a whole break. And I was washing my face, and then I walked into my bedroom. This is the same old. I washed my face, then I walked into my bedroom, And I was reading, I go through periods where I don't stream anything and I just read at night. And so the television wasn't on, and I keep the lights on very low at night in my house. And so it was it was very dark in my bedroom. And all of a sudden I walked in my bedroom, and then it was like, boom, it was like a light show. Colors, swirls, sparkles, flares, so much energy that I just spontaneously saw, meaning I just spontaneously, naturally developed a multidimensional energetic sight. So I've been clairvoyant for many years, but it manifested differently, more subtly, like just seeing visions, etc. But this is like full blown. I can see 13 plus different types of energy everywhere all the time. The universal matrix, the etheric layer, the auric field, quantum and photonic sparks, bioelectrical charges, conscious nodes of light that are responsive, color streams, my highest self's consciousness or bindu. I can see my future. I can see temporal harmonics. I can see layers of the quantum field that are substrata. I can see Vajra chains, which is basically interlinked patterns of primordial awareness of source consciousness that underlies all perceived reality. I can see these things at the same time, and it all happens spontaneously, naturally, without effort, without training. And I didn't even know what I was seeing at first. A lot of it, I was like, what is this? This is so cool. So I had to dig deep into my research. But I know that only happened, that spontaneous initial. So initially what happened was that night I saw 9 different types of energy simultaneously. And I just, like I said, I just kept seeing more and more over the past few weeks. And I know that it only happened because I stopped, quote unquote, healing. I stopped seeking more breakthroughs, and I gave myself those 2 weeks of deep rest. And then my nervous system had a deeper capacity for that, because being able to see 13 plus different types of energy, eyes open and eyes closed, that's a massive energetic nervous system capacity. And so if I were to not give myself that break, I wouldn't have had that spontaneous ability emerge. That's the beauty of integration. When you give your brain and your body, your nervous system, your energy, space and time to settle, to stabilize, you're not just resting or rejuvenating. You're truly allowing a more coherent version of you to become your new normal. Because without integration, there is no embodiment. You're just learning, you're just moving, you're just unpacking without settling, without stabilizing. And so the nature of how energy transforms and how reality changes, meaning on a micro and macro level, the nature of transformation requires a stage of stabilization. Otherwise, the change doesn't happen because there was never true restructuring, just movement. And so stabilization then does not happen, right? That's why the embodiment doesn't happen. The changes don't stick. The breakthrough doesn't become your new normal. It just becomes like an aha moment, and then life goes back to like the same old, same old. So let's unpack what integration is, okay? Let's go deep. Let's get nuanced, because it deserves that. It's such an important aspect of healing. And most people think integration is just simply resting, right? After a breakthrough period, or you're like journaling. But that's not what all of what integration is. It's not just taking a break from doing your inner work. The truth is, integration is actually not a passive pause. It's not stillness. Like I said before, there's so much happening in that quote unquote quiet. It's not a timeout. It's not a shutdown. Integration is actually an active biological, psychological, and spiritual advancement. It's the bridge between knowledge and embodiment. It's when your healing actually becomes real, sustainable, stabilized, ingrained, and lived. So let's break this down, starting with science, because we know that I love to do that. So from a neuroscience perspective, integration activates a part of your brain called the default mode network. You might have heard of that. That network switches on when you're not actively doing something, like when you're daydreaming, when you're resting, when you're walking without listening to a podcast, or, scrolling on your phone, or when you're just like staring out the window. looking at a bird, your default mode network turns on, and it's responsible for self-reflection, memory consolidation, emotional processing, and updating your identity and your worldview. So when you're constantly doing, whether you're working, you're scrolling on your phone, or you're trying to heal harder, you're trying to be more productive, you're actually staying in your task positive network, which is very essential for productivity, but not awesome for self-regulation and for integration. Stretching into new levels of growth and reaching new breakthroughs require activity, but embodiment requires space. And that's why things like boredom and walking in silence, deep sleep, creative downtime are not distractions from your healing. They are the healing. And again, long-term potentiation shows that the brain learns and wires through repetition and rest, not constant doing and intensity. So if you want to create real lasting change in your brain, in your subconscious programming, that means new beliefs, new identities, new emotional baselines. You need time between stimulus and response. Without that time, the neural pathways are not going to solidify. They're not going to strengthen because that's just how your brain works. And that means change remains conceptual. It never gets embodied. It remains intellectual understanding and not real behavioral transformation, meaning your identity doesn't change. And identity is key because your identity determines your reality. I did a whole episode about that you should listen to if you have not yet. Because what happens when you experience a breakthrough, like you have a deep trauma release, a major spiritual insight, or a giant shift in perspective, it doesn't just change what you know. It naturally starts to dissolve who you thought you were. That's the nature of a breakthrough. That's why it's called a breakthrough. So that's why integration can feel disorienting. You're not just processing emotions or a new perspective or your trauma. You're actually reorganizing your identity. And your nervous system cannot rush that. Your subconscious mind is wired for safety, which means familiarity, not change. So every time you expand, there's a need to recreate safety, a need for recalibration, where your brain and your nervous system stabilize around that new version of self, even if it's like a 20% new version of you and not like 100% new version of you. Carl Jung calls this individuation, right? That journey between becoming one's most whole and integrated self. But individuation often requires a reconciliation with your own ego, right? You have to release the version of you that was shaped by trauma, culture, survival, to make space for your highest truth, your highest self, your alignment, and your liberation. And that means just because you understand your breakthrough doesn't mean your body does, or that breakthrough feels safe for your body. The nervous system processes threat and safety kind of slowly when you're first like developing a relationship with it and experientially. So it doesn't necessarily speak the language of logic. It speaks the language of felt experience, is what I'm saying. That's why you cannot think your way through your emotions in order to release them. You have to feel them. Now, you might cognitively understand that you're safe. You might understand that your past is behind you, is in the past. But your body, your fascia, your gut might still be holding on to the imprint of that as it is now, because time is not really a thing for your body. Your brain doesn't operate in linearity. It doesn't follow the rules of time. It's just everything is in the now. It's not constrained by time. And so you can't force yourself into safety and healing. That's also contradictory, right? Force is stress, and stress activates your survival mode that then innately turns off your self-healing mode. So you have to be gentle with your body, and you have to introduce safety slowly and mindfully, respectfully, and repeatedly, meaning through measured exposure to safety, through co-regulation, self-regulation, through low stimulation, like meaning experiences and environments where your body can finally breathe and exhale, right? You're not gripping, grasping. So integration then is about giving your nervous system space and time to catch up to your consciousness. The nervous system doesn't respond to willpower, friend. It responds to felt safety and stillness and slowness and gentleness. That's how we demonstrate to our body that we're no longer at war with ourselves and with the world. And so that's why integration is ultimately a somatic event. It's not just a mental or emotional one, even. It's when your body begins to unclench, right? Where it used to contract, brace, where you finally get to neutralize all those flare-ups and soften around experiences and emotions and beliefs that once felt unsafe for you to hold, so that you can stop bracing for your life. And sometimes, the body has to aggravate in order to settle. And so after a big spiritual or emotional breakthrough, people are often surprised to feel exhausted or even experience more inflammation physically or more tension, not less. And that's actually not a failure. That's your body processing the shift and moving things to let go of what needs to be let go of. People don't talk about this a lot, but it's a real physiological and energetic response. Your nervous system, your vagus nerve, your immune system, they're all recalibrating to your new energetic frequency, basically, that you've just accessed or achieved by healing. So if you're feeling somatic symptoms in the aftermath of deep healing, please do not panic. You're not breaking. You didn't do something wrong. You're actually unfreezing, okay? Your body is letting go. And in that process, it's just like detoxing. You think intellectually like, why am I having a flare-up? My body is letting go of all this toxicity. It's because your body is moving that toxicity through your body. And in some cases, it does create a little more inflammation, but that's temporary. Remember, this is temporary. So if you're just like in constant aggro mode, that's like not a symptom of integration. We'll get more into that later. But, sometimes you can feel foggy, you can feel confused, emotional fatigue, even grief. Those are all natural byproducts of the integration period. So if you're feeling a little bit out of sorts after a powerful healing breakthrough moment, period, whatever, you're actually not regressing. You're literally being restructured on a biological, physiological, and also neurological level. So you have to let your brain and your nervous system integrate and do not abandon all the progress, your new identity. Because integration is not what happens after healing. Integration is actually the healing. When you teach your mind and your body, your whole system, that you're safe to grow without chaos, without crisis, without urgency and desperation. Integration is what allows insight to become identity. It's what turns your cognitive awareness into nervous system regulation. It's what turns spiritual downloads into soul level upgrades. It's what allows you to stop chasing transformation and to start living as your highest self, like today, right now, with ease, with joy, with inner freedom. If you've been doing the work but still feel stuck, like no matter how much healing, manifesting, or personal growth you invest in, or spiritual practices you try, something just isn't clicking. You're not alone, and you're not failing. The truth is, most teachings and approaches are outdated and only scratch the surface. My book, Unconditional, You Are Perfect As You Are, helps you understand exactly why things haven't been clicking and how to resolve the root of why you're struggling. Unconditional self-love isn't just a nice idea if you truly want to be free. It's the missing piece and the foundation for everything you desire. And you don't have to do or figure everything out on your own. You deserve clear, comprehensive, and empowering step-by-step guidance in self-love, self-healing, and spiritual growth. The Source membership gives you daily support and transformative tools to actually start living your healthiest and happiest life today and every day. 100% of members who follow the program improve their mental, emotional, and physical health by over 50% in 1 year alone. Real mind, body, soul transformation is possible, and you can achieve it with joy and ease instead of stress and struggle. So as a thank you for being a listener, you can get 75% off your first month of membership with the code PODCASTPROMO. Your links are in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the episode. So let's now talk about the energetic and spiritual aspect of integration, because this is important too, and it's not discussed as well. Because while integration is psychological, it's somatic and neurological, it's also deeply spiritual. Every healing or awakening moment, every epiphany, breakthrough, or remembrance, it's not just like a psychological event. It's actually an energetic reconfiguration, meaning your energy, your energetic field are also affected. Like you are made of energy. That is what everything is made of fundamentally. That's your true form. And energy takes time, quote unquote, time to reorganize. Just like your nervous system needs repetition to embody safety, meaning you continue to demonstrate to your nervous system in this new state of being, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. Your subtle body, your energetic body, and your field also need time to stabilize after a big awakening or an activation or a healing period. And what most people don't realize is that your energetic body can go through its own form of detox or inflammation after a breakthrough or deep healing period or spiritual awakening, or you fill in the blank, whatever you're integrating right now. Because when you've carried really dense energetic forms or resonance from trauma, from unprocessed emotions like shame and grief, all those emotional survival strategies that you were enacting, that was all energy in your energetic body and field. So you had been holding on to that density for years, perhaps decades. And then you suddenly release that density in a massive healing period. And then what happens is your field kind of becomes exposed, because again, you've released, right? And then that means that breakthrough, that awakening, all that clarity needs to be integrated and recalibrated from the movement and release of that density so that you can stabilize into greater coherence. And until that happens, you actually may feel more sensitive, like more reactive, because your whole energetic field is in recalibration mode and hasn't yet stabilized into greater, higher, more multidimensional coherence. And so that can show up as getting emotionally activated by things that didn't used to bother you or you thought that you had healed from. That could be like experiencing sudden exhaustion again, like out of nowhere, where you like slept. This has happened to me where I'm like, I slept 8 hours and I wake up and I feel like I slept for like 3 hours. Like random fogginess, feeling like overwhelmed, heightened sensitivity to certain environments or people, and also feeling tempted to like go back to familiar patterns, i.e. to false comfort. All of that energetic inflammation, so to speak, is happening in accordance with your brain, body, nervous system recalibration. And so it's not a sign that your healing hasn't worked or didn't work or wasn't real. It's just a sign that your entire field is recalibrating to become more coherent and to hold more literal light, because you have released so much density. And you're not going to run a marathon the day after you get surgery. I hope not. I would not recommend that. And so in the same way, your energy needs time and space to fully recalibrate, to fully stabilize. And people don't understand that that's another layer to integration. And trauma, which is a lot of what we hold on to in dense forms in the body, the nervous system, the energetic field, trauma is often not just personal. It's part of a lineage or ancestral field and the cultural and collective field. So when you do healing or inner work, you're often digesting layers of pain and fear and programming that aren't just part of your energy, but that you have actually absorbed from ancestral and collective fields. So you have to give your energy space and time to truly resolve what needs to be resolved, because that's a lot of energetic recalibration. So from a spiritual lens, integration is also kind of like a energetic hygiene. It's not just your energetic field recalibrating, you are literally cleansing and harmonizing. It's the process of metabolizing insight into divine embodied wisdom, because spiritual awakenings and breakthroughs without grounding is also destabilizing. That does, of course, open you up to your highest self and highest truths, but without structure, without grounding, you become disoriented. And so then that spiritual up level, that spiritual breakthrough or awakening doesn't actually land. It doesn't root. You just kind of float, right? Maybe you've seen those people. So that's why slowing down and simplicity and stillness and nature and rituals and presence are so sacred in the post-healing or awakening phase. They do anchor that energetic shift into form, and it protects your nervous system and your subtle body, your energetic body, as you expand into your next level of identity, being, success, whatever. So from a soul spiritual perspective, integration is how you honor the magnitude of what you shifted in your inner and outer reality. It's a real reverence for your energy and your soul. So now that I've explained what integration actually is and why it's necessary, let's talk about some common misconceptions about integration and why it can feel uncomfortable and why it gets bypassed so often. So like I said before, integration doesn't always feel like healing, right? It can feel like fatigue. It can feel like confusion, activation, regression, and it can just feel like nothing. Like, where's all that magic I experienced last month? So that's actually the crossroads where so many people accidentally bypass integration. They don't understand what's happening. And it's not because they're doing anything wrong. They just don't recognize integration for what it is. They think the work is done when the tears stop, right? When the journal pages are filled, when the realization hits and they've told somebody, they work through it in therapy or whatever. But healing does not end with awareness. Knowledge is not the same thing as healing. Awareness is the initiation, okay? Embodiment is the result. And integration is the bridge between the two. And so that's why integration is misunderstood, why it's bypassed in healing, because it's like not exciting. It's not invigorating, and it's not radical. It's not obvious. And so if you've done so much inner work and you're still feeling tired or heavy or not like yourself, that doesn't mean that the work that you've done didn't work or wasn't productive or that you did something wrong. It probably means that the work is working really deeply and your system is still catching up, and you need to give your whole system time to integrate. So let's break that down in another way to say that nervous system fatigue is real. So when you've been stuck in fight, flight, freeze, fawn for years, maybe decades, and you suddenly start accessing safety or softness or self-love, self-trust, self-regulation, your system doesn't just like immediately snap into peace mode. It has to unwind. You've been bracing and gripping for years and decades. And so of course that's going to be a little exhausting because you're unwinding years and decades of bracing and survival imprints. And so it's supernatural to be exhausted. And spiritual depletion is also very real. You may be doing really deep subconscious healing, rewiring, reprogramming, ancestral clearing, emotional detox, all while living your regular life. That was me for years and years. And your energy body, of course, feels the weight of that if you don't give yourself time to breathe and integrate. And so that's why sometimes subconscious resistance can show up too, right? Especially when it's quiet, when things get really slow. Your inner parts might start to feel fear. Am I regressing? Is this another form of abandonment, essentially? So what happens is your subconscious can create resistance to that stillness through self-sabotage, by re-engaging chaos. And that's not a failure, actually. It's just your subconscious and the way that it knows how to, at the level that you are at, asking you, hey, are we safe yet? Are we good? Is this stillness safe? And so you then have to affirm that safety. Because for many of us, stillness equates to danger, because if you grew up in chaos, if you grew up in a high stress relational family dynamic, which most of us did, emotionally, mentally, physically, and or all the above, through codependence, right? Conditional love, then being still might have felt like being forgotten, because doing equaled being seen, which equaled being loved. Performing equaled safety. So now when things are slow or quiet, when that inner work starts to slow down and you are tired, right? Your body's like, slow your roll. It can feel like abandonment all over again. And that's where reparenting yourself is so key, because choosing stillness and choosing rest and choosing integration is how you show your inner child, your outer child, all your wounded parts, that they do not have to earn love, that they are safe in the stillness, that they are not abandoned, that you have not forgotten them. That's your cue. This is the integration mastery to go, hey, this is my opportunity to actually enact all the things that I've been healing and learning, to put them into daily practice. So if you're in that pause, if you're in that quiet, if you're not quite sure what's next, and if you're like, nothing exciting is happening right now, you haven't done anything wrong, just integrate. You're integrating. You're not lazy. You are rewiring. And you're not stuck. You're becoming the embodiment of your whole, healed, authentic, and highest self. You have to see it from that perspective, because that's actually what's happening. And people don't explain it with all this nuance and sciencey stuff, but it's really what is truly happening. Like, there's technically no quiet. It's all reorganization and stabilization and recalibration. And so on the surface, it may feel like, what the fuck is going on right now? I did so much work and this just feels like blah, or like nothing, or like regression. It's not. You have to understand the processes of how your nervous system, your brain, and your body recalibrate, reorganize, let shit go, and actually heal. So you have to let this pause do the work that it's actually doing. You have to let your soul breathe. You have to let your system recalibrate, because your next breakthrough doesn't need to be forced. It's already being prepared right now. That's the brilliance of the integration. You're literally being primed for your next most coherent level of self. And when the time is right for you to move, meaning for you to flow again, you're going to know. You're going to know, because you're going to feel it on a deeply rooted level of embodiment as your true self, if you have honored your integration. Another misconception is that integration phases don't always announce themselves, because they're so subtle, because they can all of a sudden just be quiet. So they're easily mistaken for failure, for backsliding. So I'm just going to give you a little quick list. Here's how to recognize when you need to pause, right? When you need to integrate instead of just pushing forward. Got to do more healing work, got to be more productive. This is how you know that you just need to pause and integrate instead of forcing another breakthrough. If you're feeling emotionally numb, not because you're checked out, not because you are suppressing and denying your emotions, but because you're just saturated, right? You've been doing a lot of emotional work. If your body feels heavy, if your body feels extra inflamed, if you're tired for no reason, especially again after doing deep emotional work, if you feel spiritually disconnected, uninspired, even after periods of massive clarity, that's your soul being like, chill, take a pause, let's recalibrate. If you experience energetic dullness, meaning if like your intuition kind of feels dull, or if your passion feels like a little dull or offline, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel resistant to more content, to doing more, right? Reading more, learning more modalities, etc. Those are all major signs to pause, to allow your brain, your body, your energy to breathe, to exhale, to recalibrate, to settle, to ground, to root. It's your system saying, please let me absorb what you have already given me, please, before we do more. So here are signs that you're actually already in the integration phase, and you just got to keep letting the integration phase do its work, because this is another sort of subtlety that people don't talk about. So you're in the integration phase and it's working if these signs resonate with you. You're feeling emotionally neutral, like naturally, meaning you're not forcing emotional neutrality. You're just kind of not high, not low. You're just present. If you're craving stillness, if you're craving simplicity, if you're craving rituals without guilt, it's not you avoiding, you're just feeling drawn toward slowness, essentially, and structure. If you've had a breakthrough and you are unusually tired, like if you've slept a lot and you're just like, why am I still tired? If growth, like more growth, feels like flat, boring, that's actually a good sign, because you're not forcing yourself to do. And if you feel disinterested in consuming more content, like what I said before, that's also a good sign. It's not apathy, it's actually assimilation. It's your inner ecosystem digesting and reorganizing around all of those new insights and breakthroughs and all of that healing. So you have to remember, early healing often feels very dramatic. Like it's the catharsis, it's the epiphany, it's the tears and the emotional release and the life-changing realizations. But embodied healing is actually quieter. It's refined, it's nuanced, it's become repetitive, reinforced. And so because of that, self-mastery is often subtle. It shows up in the way that you respond differently to your life, not in how intense your breakthroughs are. And so integration is where those subtle upgrades actually land, where they lock in and then become your new baseline. So you have to remember that healing is not all drama and breakthroughs. That's actually just the breakthrough. The healing is actually in the integration, because that is when your brain, your body, your nervous system, your energy are truly recalibrating, truly reorganizing, and becoming more coherent. So if you're feeling flat, blah, dull, tired, disinterested, it may not be a problem that you need to address. It might be a sign that your system is doing really deep work, integrative work, not in the intensity, but in the quote unquote stillness. And I hope you let that be enough. Just let yourself be still, because again, real healing is not loud. It's sacred, because authentic healing, authentic transformation isn't productive until it's safe, until it lives in your nervous system and in your daily choices, not in a forced way, but in an easeful way. So I hope that you understand integration now and appreciate that pause is not passive, but it's actually the most vital phase of healing. And that sacred pause, the integration, can be really surprising if you settle in, if you lean into it, like what I said before. I just would have never imagined that one night I would walk in my bedroom and like, boom, like a light show. And then now I can see 13 types of different energies, like quantum, substrata, things that, I mean, it's really out of this world, that have not been described by any spiritual framework or even quantum mechanics. And so it's just been a real adventure in this integration. And it's continuing to develop my energetic multidimensional sight because I'm not forcing it. I'm not going, ooh, let's get to 16, I'm just like, okay, that's dope. Like, all right, I'm here for it. Because I understand too, I'm so in tune with my nervous system at this point. I'm just letting it do its thing. I'm just riding the ride because I know that when it is time to move, like I said before, when it is time for me to take action, I'm going to know exactly when it's time to proceed with all of these new abilities and integrate my integration into the next level of my purpose, of my relationships, et cetera, et cetera. And so the integration period is not just an incubation, but it really is an adventure within itself if you lean into the whole experience and stay deeply present with yourself, because it is all happening for you. Your brain, your body, your nervous system, your soul are all communicating to you in that phase. And if you know how to listen, and hopefully now you understand what's being communicated to you better from this episode, you don't have to question yourself. You don't have to continue to force productivity, because the integration within itself is so much more productive than you continuing to chase the next healing thing, the next breakthrough, whatever, fill in the blank. We have to learn how to trust ourselves in all types of unknowns, because that is the integration period as well. It's an unknown sort of influx recalibration phase. You can't really predict exactly what that new level of embodiment is while you're integrating. You just have to let your brain, your body, your nervous system, your energy fully recalibrate, fully become coherent. And so many people disrupt that process. And so their healing never really lands. It's not rooted. You're not embodied. You've just been chasing healing. You want to learn. You want to do more. In your reality, your brain, your body, your nervous system, your energy hasn't actually caught up to what you've been doing for the past few weeks, few months, few years. And so it really is a sacred act of self-love and self-empowerment to say, I'm going to lean into this phase and not label it, and understand that the quiet, the discomfort is actually not a regression, but a sign of progress within itself. When I shift my perspective, instead of going, what have I done wrong, to what have I done right? So here's your action step for the week. I want you to acknowledge and respect what has already changed and transformed. So the first step is to lie down and get real cozy. So remove all distractions and people and pets, and get into a space and a time where you can just be with yourself and breathe deeply from your belly. Place one hand on your heart, place one hand on your belly, and then just feel the weight of your body. Let the surface that you're sitting on or laying on hold you, and then settle into that presence. And the second part is to, in that self-regulated, peaceful, open, curious place, self-loving place, gently ask yourself these questions. Number one, what part of me is no longer struggling in the same way? Where am I more regulated or less reactive, even if it's just a little bit, a little scotch? What outdated pattern or belief has loosened its grip without me forcing it, like pretending? Don't try to anticipate the answers to those questions. Don't try to answer them too for yourself. Just listen from your body. Okay, this is a real somatic practice. And then from the answers to those questions, actively acknowledge and give thanks to your mind, to your body, to your soul, to your energy for integrating those parts of your healing and of yourself. And that might sound like, I'm grateful that I'm integrating the part of me who no longer needs to over-explain myself to feel seen. Or I am grateful that I'm integrating the part of me who used to run from uncomfortable conversations. So that acknowledgement and that appreciation actually collapses the abstraction of integration and anchors it into real felt experience and embodiment. because healing that doesn't include stillness and integration is incomplete. Growth that parades as constant motion is actually just trauma dressed as productivity. We've been conditioned to equate evolution with effort, but some of the most profound rewiring happens when you're not doing, when you're resting, when you're being still and enjoying the comfort of quiet, the space where nothing seems to be happening, but actually everything is silently reorganizing in your field, in your brain and in your body and in your energy. And so you have to appreciate that pause, that uncomfortable in between what's happening space, the space where your mind wants to go back to intensity. I need to prove, I need to earn, I need to effort, I have to be more. But when you do that, you're just reinforcing the false belief that you need to do anything to be good enough, to be lovable, to be worthy, to be seen, and to be safe. And so the integration period is such a sacred womb for you to not only incubate all of your healing, but for you to reparent and reinforce to yourself that transformation does not need to be chaotic and dramatic and exhausting and intense, that you can heal with joy, with ease and rest and with self-love. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope this episode awakened you, inspired you, and reminded you of what's possible when you love, heal, and free yourself and reclaim your highest truth and power. If this show has transformed or enlightened your self-love, growth, and healing journey, please like, save, and share this episode and leave a positive review on Apple or Spotify. And subscribe to be reminded of new episodes. Your support is deeply appreciated and truly helps this show so much. And if today's episode resonated with you, don't stop here. Go deeper. My book, Unconditional, You Are Perfect As You Are, expands on these teachings and gives you the missing framework about self-love that no one is talking about. So get your copy today to start reading and loving yourself more. And if you're ready for the ultimate healing journey with daily instruction and guidance from me, I'd love to see you inside the Source membership, the only holistic and comprehensive step-by-step self-healing program that is proven to work. Remember, you were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. It's time to claim everything you want and more. All the links are in the show notes. I'll see you next time.